Let's queer politics. Anti-LGBTQ plus Guatemalan presidential election frontrunner intends to govern with the fear of God. Guatemalan presidential contender Sandra Torres voiced her staunch opposition to same-sex marriage, abortion, and LGBTQ plus rights. Speaking at a school, the former First Lady took care to clarify that her stance did not equate to homophobia and emphasized her wish for the government to acknowledge life starting at conception and her intention to govern, quote, with the fear of God, end quote. Leading the National Unity of Hope Party, which holds significant sway as the second largest group in the unicameral legislature, Torres has been gradually aligning herself more with the right-wing ideologies. Recent polls had shown her as a top presidential choice, having secured 16% of the votes in the initial voting round on June 25th. Her current presidential campaign, marking her third attempt, has seen her partnering with a right-wing evangelical pastor as her vice president. She has strongly reiterated her commitment against legalizing abortion and has consistently opposed LGBTQ plus rights. Some political analysts believe Torres' shift to the right could be a strategic move to garner support from the nation's influential evangelical churches, thereby ensuring their continued alliance with the government. Although the National Unity of Hope Party was once known for its social democratic leanings, it, like Torres, has veered towards the right. This is interesting because I think it parallels stuff that goes on in our country. We seem to swing to the right very far, and then they get into power and everyone realizes how crazy things are, and you see the pendulum swing back. And, I'm hoping that's sort of what's going to happen there, unless they wake up before the election and actually decide that she is not the right presidential candidate.
My favorite part is how she says she's not homophobic. I hate gay people. I don't support LGBT rights, but it's different somehow.
Yeah. I'm going to protect your uterus.
Love the sin, hate the sinner. Wait, other way around, I think, actually. I'm not too much fond of any of that altogether. And, I'm a little worried because their rival, who's at 11%, I believe, in votes, Bernardo Arevalo, is maintaining his stance on abortion in a similar fashion, but has remained quiet on his opinions on same-sex marriage, LGBTQ plus rights. So I'm kind of wondering where the system's going to bring both of these candidates.
Guatemala is at great risk. Guatemala is not an economic power. They can easily be isolated in not only Central America, but in the Western Hemisphere. And Guatemala has a significant immigration policy, flight out of Guatemala, brain drain out of Guatemala, specifically to the United States. I will do everything we can to put this news story that we're reporting in front of LGBTQ community in Guatemala. But I would warn this candidate. It's easy to move to the right because the right, especially the radical right, seems to be very loyal in the foaming at the mouth voting experience. At the end of the day, whether that's the overall decision of the nation, you don't know. In most instances, it is not. In some instances, it is. So Guatemala and its electorate have the decision-making capability. Do you want to be in the broad general world, especially in Central America and the Western Hemisphere, of most nations in the Western Hemisphere being very embracive of minority, marginalized community rights, which includes LGBT? Or do you want to be in the category of Niger and Uganda and Hungary and Russia? And I would suggest for Guatemala that they should watch what's happening in Africa very closely. Uganda and Niger both said basically the same things that this candidate for president of Guatemala has said. And now they're facing backlash from the World Bank, from the United Nations, from the African Union, saying everything that they're doing in Africa are unacceptable to the principles of an international community. That is exactly what will happen to Guatemala if she takes this forward. And by the way, it's one of the reasons why elections matter, because we want a president of the United States that enforces that on Guatemala. Guatemala, we're watching you closely. and this may not work out very well for you. We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ+ community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.